let me pose an example to you from COVID times. Western medicine, everyone approves. The moment you talk about Ayurveda, there is such a hue and cry about Ayurveda being bunkum, and it happens even in today's day and age.
Again, that shows biases. Actually, there is enough textual evidence and very good research being done by AIIMS and by the Ayush Ministry, which institutions have been set up, which shows the science behind Ayurveda. But the science behind Ayurveda is there in our ancient texts as well. So, I'm not, from what I know, homeopathy, I admit, is perhaps doesn't have as much science behind it. It's not ours in any case, but Ayurveda does. And Ayurveda, the approach to health in Ayurveda is fundamentally different from the approach of Western medicine. Western medicine is very symptomatic driven and relief of symptoms. It doesn't look at a holistic approach of solving problems at the root, often, right? Because monetary incentives are not aligned with it. But Ayurveda is a holistic system. It actually sets your body back into balance. I think, using both Ayurveda and Western medicine, Ayurveda to maintain your health, Western medicine when there's a crisis would actually lead to better health outcomes.
There's another aspect that I wanted to raise now that we're having this conversation. We've recently, celebrated the second year of abrogation of Article 370, and some seem to be harping on that special status of the only, if I may, Muslim majority state being taken away. But Kashmir also has a very rich historic connection to Lord Shiv, and you've written about it very extensively. Tell our viewers more about Lord Shiv, Shaivism and Jammu and Kashmir.
Kashmir was actually, at some periods in our history, the intellectual heartland of India, and especially of Shaivism. So I, as a Shaivite, really, adore, look up to Kashmir. Around a millennia ago, Abhinava Gupta, who was a Kashmiri polymath, perhaps one of the finest intellectuals India ever had. His texts on Tantra, on Shaivism, on religious philosophy, on poetry, on dramatics. You can imagine the talent of that great man. And sadly, we learn very little about him. There was a university in ancient Kashmir called Sharda Peeth, which is presently in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And of course, Nalanda, Takshashila, Ujjaini, Mahadevpuram, they were great. Vikramshila were great, massive universities. Sharda Peeth was perhaps a little smaller, but the quality of intellectual output that used to come from there was of a very, very high order. Sadly, it was attacked in the invasions that happened on Kashmir, again by the Turks, and destroyed. And then you find that the quality of intellectual output started declining, from there. And going back to what I was saying earlier, that we need to have a balance in all our strengths. That of course we need we need that warrior spirit to defend our country, from invaders. We need the ability to make money, to defend. We need artists who come out with beautiful art.
Yes.
But we need intellectuals as well, who can help guide all of us. We are not intellectuals. I mean, intellectuals are those who come up with primary theories, which then those of us can absorb and try and learn and try and explain and understand in our own lives. We need that, those intellectuals as well, which our ancient universities used to produce. Sadly, our modern universities do not honestly produce fresh intellectual output. Most of them are actually just copy-pasting Western theories and replacing Indian terms on it, which is why to most of us who are not intellectuals, those theories make very little sense.
Yes.
Because they don't connect to the real India. And once I've come to the West and seen Western theories from these universities, now I can connect to the theories that our intellectuals tell us in India. And I realize that actually those theories are just Western theories, and they're replacing Western terms with Indian terms. So white patriarchy, Brahminical patriarchy.
Yes.
Which is, if you ask me, a little bizarre, because actually the most powerful Brahmin male ruler in human history was Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, actually. Who's a hero to them. And before that, the most powerful Brahmin male ruler was probably Pushyamitra Shunga. Before that, Ravan. Otherwise we've had no Brahmin male rulers ruling much of India. The Mauryas were not upper caste, the Guptas were not upper caste, the Marathas were not upper caste. So actually replacing Western theories with Indian terms doesn't connect to India. We need to build our own theories. And I'm not saying everything about India is perfect. There are some good, there are some bad.